So after I came back from Israel, I wanted to stay in touch with the Jewish people, but I wasn't quite sure which profession I should choose. And I decided I like languages. I like different peoples, different nations, but I wasn't able to study Hebrew at university. It was not offered, but I realized I could study Russian at university, which I knew from school a little bit, and that's what I did. And I thought I would add Hebrew later on in my private time, and so that was the first step into preparing me what would come after that, because then in the middle of my studies I wanted to spend a year abroad to improve my Russian, and I ended up in Ukraine. And I had a university grant in the city of Kharkov, which is in eastern Ukraine. And there I was for the first time with an organization called Exodus at the time that was helping with a huge wave of Jewish people looking for their ancient homeland and packing their bags and going to Israel and needing help in the process. And that's where I developed my love for Ukraine, for things that God is doing in Ukraine. And but then that year was over and I went on to do other things. And recently I felt that a period of very successful professional career in my life was coming to an end, and God had something new. And I started traveling. I started traveling Eastern Germany also to see where some of our history is located, what are some of the things that God has entrusted to us. And in that period, our Christians for Israel worker on the ground for Ukraine started contacting me back from those times and asking me if I could translate for a working group that was coming, mixed Dutch-German working group that was coming to prepare food packages for needy Jewish people in Ukraine. And I had time, there was no reason to deny, and so I saw for the first time after some 20 years what the situation is for many Jewish people today in Ukraine. Obviously very many have left already for Israel, but especially for the older generation. It's a very, very difficult situation, and many, especially Holocaust survivors, because of the pain they have gone through and the complete destruction of family and oftentimes the inability to build new trusting relationships, that many of them are alone, completely alone today. Either they have family far away or they have no family at all. And I just went shopping the other day to a supermarket in Germany, and I took a small basket, you know, that I wouldn't pull around, to make sure I buy only the most necessary things. And then I ended up at the cashier and I paid some 35-40 euro. And then it dawned on me, I just spent a Ukrainian pension on some butter and milk and vegetables. And so that's constantly in my mind now, realizing we have so much that we've been entrusted with here in Europe, in Central Europe and Western Europe. And it's not hard to share some with God's people in circumstances that they didn't deserve. They were just born into it. Things have developed the way they have, and now they live on a pension where they really cannot make ends meet. And so the desire grew out of that to touch some Jewish lives in Ukraine just by giving practical love. Not so much words, but practical love through the food packages, but also through sponsorships. And that was the idea that came up during those visits. You know, we would hear their amazing stories that have not been told somewhere in the villages, and you visit these people. Some would get up and suddenly start singing a song in Yiddish and start sharing their incredible survival stories. And on the other hand, I believe we have many people, and especially the Western countries, that would love to help, but want to make sure it goes to somebody who really needs it. And so I just saw a connection in my mind between those two sides, and I thought, wouldn't it be beautiful to lift one of those Holocaust survivors out of obscurity of a number of several thousand Holocaust survivors who are still alive in Ukraine today, and connect them one particular face with a particular sponsor, get their story, maybe 10 lines or a page, and make sure that somebody in Western Europe knows that they live, that they went through what they went through, and that I can carry back a message to Ukraine and say, look, there's somebody in Holland, there's somebody in Germany, whoever else joins in, who's praying for you and who also wants to help practically. And here is the firewood you need for the winter, here is the food, here is the medication you need. And it's just my heartbeat to connect these two sides, and it's been developing, and I see it's such a blessing for the survivors in Ukraine, but it's also a blessing for the people who are able to help and make a difference.
Alpha.